This show is sponsored by Carpet Direct of Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to Half Full and a Cup of Joe with Joe Fulford, the show that's always overflowing with optimism and caffeine. Joe's got his game face on and his coffee cup full, ready to dive into the world of football. From the Florida Gators to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and beyond to college and NFL football, Joe's got the analysis, the insights, and the passion to get you pumped up and ready for the game. So sit back, relax, and fill up your cup with Joe. And now from West Des Moines, Iowa, here is Joe Fulford.
Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of Half Full Cup of Joe with yours truly, Joe Fulford, here on a beautiful Thursday night. Yes, I got the hat on, the Buccaneer new hat on. I got the Gator gear. I'm ready for what's going to be a great weekend of football coming up, and one of the best that we have seen in a long time. On tonight's show, Lauren Meadows is going to be joining me here in just a little bit. He's driving to Nashville. He's on his way to watch the game on Saturday night as Florida would take on Tennessee. More about that in just a minute. And then a little bit later on, our good friend James Ludeman, who hopefully will see the light. If you saw last week's show, you'll know exactly what I mean. Hopefully he has found the light, and he'll be able to join me on this edition. Should be a great show tonight. Make no mistake about it. Now, before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity for those that are watching here tonight, thoughts and prayers are with you tonight. And for those that have been involved in Hurricane Milton, down there in the mid-southwest part of Florida, thoughts and prayers are with you. I can tell you that as far as my family goes, and family and friends, everybody has been accounted for. They're fine. That's great news. So everybody, as far as I know, everybody's doing great. And so happy for them as well. And chat room is open. Post your comments. Tell us where you're chatting from. We would like to see that as well. And give you a shout out a little bit later on in the show. But where do we begin with our conversation? As always, with these guys right here, the Florida Gators. They played at home Saturday night against Central Florida in a game that was, I believe, the first game back since their break after having a week off against Mississippi State. They played really well and scored 24 first half points, and then the defense was able to come on and hold tight and was able to actually come out and win the ball game. 20-13 was the final score. For that game, Graham Mertz, 19 of 23 for 179 yards, had a touchdown in the game. DJ Lagway was 4 for 4 for 50 yards, but make no mistake about it, this was a Graham Mertz show. He did an awesome job. And the running game was fantastic. Montrell Johnson, 10 carries for 55 yards. Jaden Ball was 9 carries for 30 yards. By the way, Montrell Johnson also had a touchdown in the game, as well as Jacoby Jackson, 3 carries for 25 yards on the day. While the Gator defense held was able to hold UCF to just 108 yards of rushing and 165 yards of passing, all total less than 275 yards on the day. Now, people say, okay, Joe, it's Central Florida. They're not that great of a team. But you know what, guys? A win is a win is a win. And if you want, and everybody says, if you want to win, you got to find a starting point. They found that 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State, and now they're starting to build on that. And now with the other recent events, it gives the Gators a strong belief that they could very well be part of the conversation come November and December. But, we're getting way ahead of ourselves because we've always been told one game at a time. Let's see what happens this week. Then we'll worry about the next week when we'll get into the schedule next week. In fact, the schedule as it is right now, let's see. Tennessee's this week. Next week will be Kentucky, I believe that game is going to be on the SEC network. And then they have another bye. That's when they meet their schedule head on, when they take on Georgia, Texas, LSU, then Ole Miss, followed by Florida State. And as you look at that, as you look at that matchup, it's very well conceivable that and this is just my observation here. They could beat Tennessee. I think they could beat Kentucky. Do I think they beat Georgia? I do believe they can beat Georgia, but will they? Probably not, because I don't think they're up and ready for that yet. I think they play Texas very tough. Okay. And look, the fact of the matter is this: we want this team to be competitive. Yes, we want to see wins. Yes, we want to see game after game this team just taking it on and doing everything that they can to win these games. But if you're going to win, you have to be competitive in your games. That's how you win the game. And if you don't win it, if you're not competitive, you're not going to win the games that you're, quote, supposed to win. Florida was supposed to win against Central Florida. Yes, they were. Now they have the opportunity to make some things happen against Tennessee. And as you know by now, Tennessee lost last week. Who did they play? Somebody tell me who they played last week. Well, actually, I'll look it up here. I'll tell you they played last week. Because, it was... Let's see, who did Tennessee play? Arkansas. Arkansas beat them 19-14. Okay. And behind Sam Pittman, which I'm happy for Sam Pittman. And I love what he's doing with that program. They're making some big strides. So is Vandy. They beat freaking Alabama. Now that's something I never thought in my mind would happen. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, for the inquiring mind that wants to know, yes, the animal has a mind of his own. Make no mistake about it. Not the kind of mind that you think, but at least I have a mind of my own. But back to what happened against Arkansas. They showed they were able to show Tennessee's vulnerabilities. They were able to show their weaknesses. If you don't think for 1 minute that Billy Napier and company is not going to take advantage of that, got another thing coming. Now, yes, Tennessee can always make those corrections, but I'm not so sure that it's. I don't know. I just got this strange good vibe about the game Saturday night. Now, as far as Hurricane Milton and everything that happened, this storm traveled to the south. I think the most it gave got was a lot of rain, a thunderstorm, maybe a few tornadoes. Um, uh, some parts of the upper northern portion of the state were fine, so that didn't affect them too much. But on the other hand, they're still dealing from tropical storm Helene. And just to talk about that for just a minute, and I'm sure James Luneman and I will have a conversation about this a little bit later on in the show. Did you happen to take a look at Tropicana Field? The roof of Tropicana Field actually is torn to smithereens. There's like 2 or 3 pieces left of the roof, but more or less it has just torn off. So it's going to take several weeks to assess the damage. And a lot of people say, now what happens? Where are the Rays going to play? Are the Rays going to be able to play next year? And could it possibly be an open stadium? Just take the things off and let them play in an open stadium. That's interesting. I wish I had Dan Lucas on to talk about that, but obviously, the storm and safety of those people down in Tampa take first priority. As I said, my family's safe. I'm glad, but thoughts and prayers of those that have been devastated by what happened. But as you look at the game on Saturday, were you impressed with Graham Mertz? I was. Forget about the fact if it was UCF. I was very much impressed with Graham Mertz. I thought that Graham Mertz played one of his best games I've seen him play in quite a while. Excuse me. Able to make the reads, able to make the plays when he had to. Forget about the fact that they didn't score in the second half. I think the second half was more of a defensive challenge. Can they sustain? Could they sustain the lead, hold on to it? And they did. Defense did the job that it was called to do. It's not very rare that you hear that. And then I got to thinking to myself that last year it was all about the offense and the lack of offense and the lack in the way that they're playing. The defense was okay. Now this year the offense is on a high ride right now, and the defense is still having trouble. They made some strides against Central Florida, but man, they do have a ways to go. And when Lauren Meadows comes on a little bit later on, we're going to talk to him about it because I believe they made some adjustments about where people stood. I mean, like I believe it was defensive coordinator Austin Armstrong, who actually was in the booth, and Roberts was on the sideline. We'll get clarification on that a little bit later on. Lauren Meadows will join me. But man, I still cannot get over the Alabama win, or loss, I should say. I mean, that was one of the biggest upsets. That was probably one of the biggest upsets we've seen in a decade. When you really stop and think about it. Half full cup of Joe with you in this edition, Thursday night, October 7th. Is it 7th? No, 10th. October 10th. Losing my mind. Then again, people always knew I lost my mind. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with the way the Vandy played their game. They stood fast to their game plan. They never wavered from it. And Alabama just didn't have an answer for them. And it's funny that what happened after the game, Malachi Moore of Alabama got upset and did some things on the field after the game. I think he pushed a player, or was that a different game? I think he pushed a player. I'm not sure, but he he did some things that were not acceptable. And Kalen DuBois talked to him after the game. I'm sure that wasn't a very pleasant conversation. So, but Alabama now has been exposed. So, so it's going to be a very interesting to see if these other teams can capitalize on that exposure. I don't think Alabama is very good. I don't think Alabama is that impressive of a team, if you ask me. As a matter of fact, I think that I've said it before. I think Texas, when you look at the teams, I think Texas is at the top of the ladder right now. In fact, they are the number one team in the nation right now. Excuse me. checking some things here while we wait on. Why am I not coming through? Hang on a minute, guys. Let me look at something here real quick. Hang on. Hang on, Joe. I'm going to be right back here in just a minute. I got to see what's going on here. Some reason I am not. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, thought something was maybe weird. Or I was on the wrong channel. But anyways, yeah, Alabama definitely got exposed. I don't think they're the best team in college football. I don't know if they should be a top 10 right now. Okay, maybe a top 10. I'm not sure yet. But hang on, people. Anyway, sorry about that. Back with you, but I think Alabama. I think that maybe Alabama might be one of the. I think that maybe Alabama could very well be maybe a top 15. I don't know necessarily a top 10 right now. And for simple reasons that they're going through a transitional period with the new coach. They always go through that. And while we're waiting on Lauren to come on, in fact, let's talk about because this is going to be a great weekend of college football and some great games that's going to be happening, beginning with Clemson at Wake Forest. Number 21, Missouri will be against Massachusetts. Georgia Tech against North Carolina. Penn State will be at USC for a 2:30 matchup on CBS. Cal will be at Pittsburgh. Let's see some other games that we have coming up. Mississippi State will be against Georgia. That will be on the SEC network. Of course, Florida will be at Tennessee. That is a 7 p.m. kickoff time Eastern, 6:30 Central Time. You can watch the game on ESPN. Let's see. Ohio State will be at I didn't know about. I didn't know about this, but number 2 Ohio State will be at number 3 Oregon this week. Now that's gonna be a matchup to watch. I may have to flip my TV back and forth to watch both games. Iowa State will be at West Virginia, and those are the biggest games to watch this week in college football. Now, whether now I didn't know about Ohio State being at Oregon. No, and not even realizing that it's the number 2 versus the number 3 team in the country. So I mean that you look at that and like, wow, this is going to be a great weekend for college football. Probably one of the best football weekends we have seen in such a long time. A gentleman that we have not seen in a long time, maybe about a week or so. Gentleman that does an outstanding job at Gator Bait Media. Always looked up, always wanted to become a Lauren Meadows someday. Then again, maybe not. But anyways, as we bring him to the stage and bring him on, hey, I like the setup in the background. Way to go!
Yeah, that's my guy, Jaquavion Frazier signaling first down. So I thought that picture was taken by Chris Spears, who's who does our photography at Gator Bait and does a great job. And so I really like that picture. I might actually get it framed and give it to Jaquavion. We run into each other a little bit in the spring, so
There you go. Hey, do me a favor. Just move to your right just a little bit. There you go, right there.
Well,
Yeah,
give me a second. Hold on. I think I can fix it.
you know what I'm talking about. I know what you're doing. Okay, he's Lloyd's gonna fix his back right here in just a minute. Then he'll join us. All these technical things, people. Okay, and so
There
uh,
we go.
there we go.
Yeah.
We got a great picture. So you made it to Nashville. That's great to see.
No, I'm actually in McDonough, Georgia. So,
Oh,
so if you're familiar with Atlanta, basically where the airport is, that's where I am right now. I just with the hurricane and everything, I didn't get much sleep last night, so I decided to kind of go halfway.
well, there you go. To spend
Yeah,
the night, then travel. That's what we did when we wanted to when we did our trips a couple of weeks ago. Tell you
yeah,
about that sometime. Well, before we came on, we talked a little bit about the Gators and their game against Central Florida. Um, Defense did the job they had to do. It wasn't a spectacular performance, but you know what? You limit the team to 13 points, 273 total yards of offense on the day. Speaks volumes about what this team could actually become.
yeah. I mean, we talked about it last week before the game. I think it was on Tuesday, and you know, we thought, you and I both, and from what I saw against Colorado, that Florida would be able to lean on UCF a little bit, and they did, and they were able to limit them. I mean, to limit the number 3 rushing team in the country to 108 rushing yards when you had been a team that had pretty much stopped nobody on the ground. I mean, it was a great performance. They were flying around. The defensive linemen actually did a great job of handling the front, so guys like Shamar James, Pup Howard, and others could, Jaden Robinson could get to the football, and so they were able to limit those. I think what you want to make this UCF team do is commit to driving the football down the field with the run game, and they weren't able to do that. And KJ Jefferson is not as good as great of a thrower of the football, where he could almost do it by himself. Plus, without Xavier Townsend, who decided to redshirt, who was probably their best receiver, the guys that they had on the perimeter just weren't able. I mean, they weren't going to get open against the Florida secondary. Just weren't gifted enough. So, Florida was able to commit to the run, defend it, and really the game went the way that I thought it would. I had it 31-20. It ended up 24-13. So I had Florida about 11 up, and I thought it was a solid win, and definitely a game that, if Billy Napier will remain the coach, and that's yet to be seen, this was a game he had to have.
Well, and I think that as we look at what happened during the course, as we look what happened during the course of the game, it's like the first half. Graham Mertz, he played excellent. He played with a lot of fire. The stats on him were amazing. I'm going to pull that up here right now. But Mertz was 19 of 23 for 179 yards, 1 touchdown. Goose egg in the interception department and threw for 1 score. I mean, you would think that the defense would start feeding off that, play with a lot more excitement, and they did. But it just seemed, for some reason, the adjustment that Central Florida made defensively, the offense could not adjust to that, and just caused problems.
You talking about the adjustments that our defense
Central,
made?
no, their defense made. Their defense made, because remember, we didn't score in the second. Yeah.
Well, you got to think about it. They only had 3 possessions, and they still had 103 yards. So I talked to somebody about that. If you put it in perspective of 3 possessions, 103 yards, that's 30 yards of possession. And then if you look at it from the standpoint of, so they got 3 first downs basically in every possession, and then they were driving and had a bad holding penalty. I think if they don't have that holding penalty, and Trey Smack ended up missing a field goal, if they don't have that holding penalty, I mean, it was in the red zone, they end up winning the football game. I mean, they end up scoring again, which would have gave them 31 points against a team that had, really, so I think that second half in Napier's defense, A, could be kind of misconstrued because they only got it 3 times, and B, the way that the Florida defense was playing, the one thing people need to understand about Billy Napier is if his defense was playing well, I mean, this is his whole complementary football. Offense did their thing, okay? And defense is playing well enough. We're not going to do anything to put our defense in a bad position. You look at this, you look at the Mississippi State game, they had to keep the foot on the throttle because Florida's defense wasn't playing very well.
Right.
So I think when you look at it from that point, even if you look at the Samford game, they still scored some points in the second half, but one of them was a jet sweep that went for 80 yards that I guarantee they didn't think was going to, nobody thinks that play is going to go for 80 to the house on the first play of a drive. So, I mean, unfortunately, that's Billy Napier's MO. Even if this team was undefeated right now, you would have a bunch of 30-14s, 28-14s. And as long as the defense is playing well, Billy Napier is not going to put his team on a short field. He's got arguably the best punter in the country, which continues to flip the field for him. He wasn't going to do that. And that's where I think that, and you really think about it, if without, I mean, that pass interference call came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was.
They had the wheel route covered, and that was a really bad call for a lot of reasons. They don't score there, and then they end up winning, 24-6. So I think that, and maybe they go in and score after that or what have you. But to only have the ball 3 times, get 103 yards. I mean, you think of it this way: if you get if like I said, if you got a drive and you're getting 30 yards per drive, even if you're punting and your defense is playing well, you're going to be in pretty good shape in the football game.
Ron Meadows on this edition of Half Full and Cup of Joe here on Facebook Live and YouTube. Got any questions? Please post them in the chat room and we'll be happy to answer it. I do understand with the hurricane and everything that happened. I imagine you were at home last night there in Gainesville. Talk about give us a sense of what it was like. You went in the path, but you had backside of strong rains and winds and all that. What was that like?
So it's funny because from a Gainesville standpoint, Helene actually affected us more because remember that was kind of the Big Bend area. Cedar Key, Gainesville basically is almost parallel to Cedar Key for those that don't know. So we actually had higher winds and rain and things like that with Helene. Last night, it was just a lot of rain, and maybe there was some wind, but I think where I'm kind of in a line of where like there's a ton of trees and in my neighborhood, so I think the wind doesn't necessarily. And if the wind comes from the east or it can kind of, but I think this was kind of coming north south south north maybe. So we didn't get as bad yesterday. We lost power for about an hour and a half, and then it kicked back on about midnight. And really, other than a few branches here and there, we didn't really have any issues. I mean, obviously, the people down in Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area, Siesta Key, Sarasota, I mean, they got the worst of it. So, just last night, just really staying prepared, had the flashlights ready to roll, had the generator ready to roll this morning if we needed it. But fortunately, we didn't lose any power, and I didn't get much rest last night, which is another reason I decided to kind of roll just because that way I had to get up in the morning. If I didn't sleep well again tonight, I have to get up, super early to get up to Knoxville. So
there you go.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Well, I'm glad you're safe. And by the way, for those that are wondering, South Florida was supposed to play Friday night at Raymond James Stadium. That game has been moved to Saturday. So at Raymond James Stadium, so they delayed that.
Yeah, I was wondering where USF was this weekend, if they were
Yeah,
traveling or at home. So
no, they're at home, and so
okay.
they will be at home, and they will be um, I forget who they're taking on. I just went over the football schedule earlier, but I've got to talk about South Florida. But um, we had some interesting things happen during the course of last week that I think gives Gator fans some optimism. One, we saw probably the greatest upset, one of the greatest upsets in the history of college football. Vanderbilt upsetting Alabama, number one. And then, of course, we saw Sam Pittman's Arkansas team defeat Tennessee. Um, Obviously, I think the Vandy was more surprising win than the Arkansas win. But, Arkansas and what Sam Pittman is doing, I mean, he this may have been the turnaround game for him in his program.
Yeah, I mean they're coming along. I mean it's definitely a different team. You look at the difference that maybe Bobby Petrino has made, but they've also been able to kind of play a little better defensively as well. And they confused Nico. I'm trying to say it right.
Yeah, I can't say his last name.
Yeah, I can't get it right either. But it took me a while for Princely Umami too. So I'll figure it out. But no, I mean just basically, it tells you what, and this may be a cautionary tale for Florida. Sam Pittman had to basically address some issues. He had to get rid of Dan Enos midway through the season last week, who's actually at Florida now, but had to make a change offensively. I think they made a change. Well, defensively, Barry Odom got a job, so I think they lost Barry Odom as defense coordinator, and so they've had some moving parts from a staff standpoint, obviously with the transfer portal, and they just put together a really good game plan. And then when they needed it most, they went down and Bobby Petrino schemed it up, and they got the winning touchdown to take out Tennessee. And the defense kept them in it long enough where Tennessee, all those offenses are kind of helter skelter, where if they get up on you and then they could really put their hand on your throat, then they can strangle you out. But keeping it close and then having the ball at the end to pretty much go ahead and then force Nico to make a drive to win the football game. And at that point, he just couldn't do it. So, you look at what Sam Pittman's doing, he's always going to have a physical football team. He's arguably one of the best O-line coaches in the history of the game. And, just really playing a physical brand of football. And you look at the SEC right now, there's a lot of football to be played, and they definitely were able to get a big win at home and take out a giant. And it wasn't as big as the other giant killer, but it was definitely a big win for somebody that definitely going into that. Tennessee, I think it kind of changed the view of Tennessee as they were looked at as maybe definitely a playoff team, somebody that could challenge Georgia, possibly Alabama for the SEC, even getting that Ole Miss conversation. Now the view is a little different, and some people even think that the Gators maybe to go into Neyland and or Neyland, as I was told, and get a win. So we'll see.
South Florida, by the way, we talked to a moment ago. South Florida is going to be playing Memphis at home. 2:30 kickoff time. 2:30 kickoff time on that one. Let me check that out real quick. That'd be on ESPN, by the way. So you might want to check that out. So that's going to be an interesting game. Let me ask you this: in your opinion, you've watched college football. I've watched college football. Buford Benton, who's on, who just commented on me a moment ago. I think he's watched football. Thank you very much for the comment, Buford. Does Florida have the talent to beat Tennessee? Is this going to be a type of physicality kind of game, or is this like David versus Goliath kind of game?
No, no. I think if you look at the rosters are very comparable. I mean, you think about a guy like Brew McCoy. He was a highly rated receiver coming out. But I mean, he's kind of underachieved. Started out at Oklahoma, and then ended up at Tennessee. He's been okay. Squirrel White's a good receiver, but the thing about Florida and this thing is they really know this opponent very well and had success last year, albeit in the swamp. But no, I don't. I think if you look at the rosters and you put them head to head, I mean, no, I don't think it's David versus Goliath. Now, if you look at the way that Florida has played under Billy Napier and maybe not, got out the gate or sometimes looked like a team that didn't practice at all this week and things like that, then yeah. And I think that that's maybe where Hyper would have the advantage because you know what you get with Hyper.
Yeah.
You know what kind of offense you get. He knows it. Everybody understands it. Now, does that mean they're going to move the football? Well, no. But on defense, Tennessee's really good up front. But the last two seasons, Florida's been able to move the football on Tim Banks' defense and run the football fairly well. And if you look at last year, they were able to jump on them, and they really couldn't come from behind that. So if Nico has those same ghosts that he was kind of seeing against Arkansas, it could be a game that Florida could turn into a street fight, and which is what they really want to do if they're true to what I think Coach Napier wants to do. Even though he wants to play a physical brand of football, he rarely uses the word physical and kind of substitutes it with character, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's another story. But no, I think that Florida definitely has the roster to compete. I mean, absolutely. I mean, you got guys like Trequezie Bridges and Asa Turner who started the national championship game. You got Jason Marshall Jr. who's playing well. Jake Slaughter, according to Pro Football Focus, I'm not sure if he still is, but at one time was the highest rated center. You got Austin Barber. You got Montrell Johnson. You got Jaden Bye. You got Chimera DK. You got Arliss Boardingham, who's still not been able to make his mark yet, but was, highly recruited. I mean, you got rosters that are very comparable. And then the transfers, guys like Pup Howard and some of those guys that are making an impact. I mean, yeah. I mean, and then you got the young guys, TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, LJ McCray. I mean, the rosters are very comparable, but you got to go out and execute. And you got to go out and execute on the road. What will be interesting to me is barring, I'm trying to think, based on last year, I guess the most hostile place they played was LSU last year, and Mertz played fairly well. This will probably be one of the most hostile environments that Graham Mertz has played in, and I'm interested to see how he handles the crowd at Neyland Stadium and sees how and just see how he plays with that. And then if you remember, Anthony Richardson was able to affect the game with his legs a couple years ago, things like that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And the little change up with Lagway. See how Lagway handles it. Do they keep things vanilla and kind of make him the playmaker when he's in there, or do they kind of let him, let it rip? It's all going to be interesting.
Who's the big name transfer that came into that they signed before the year began, and they hadn't played him yet? The popular guy on defense.
I'm not sure.
He was at Florida. Then decided to go to another school. Then he left that school. Decided to come back. I mean,
Tennessee?
No, to Florida. Hill somebody. I mean, I forget.
Oh, Romani McClain.
Yeah. What's the story on him? What's the update on him?
He's dressed. He's warming up. He's but just not really getting any burn. I mean, I think they've got Jason Marshall Jr. They've got Devin Moore, and they've got Dijon Johnson.
Yeah.
And they seem to be happy with. I mean, really, you only want to play 2 to 3 corner, 3 corners, maybe a fourth. So I don't know if he's. I mean, for what I understand, there needs to be some continued growth and things like that. And the other thing, man, he's only like 180 pounds. I mean, maybe
That's not a lot.
another off season to really,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's the thing about it coming to big boy football is they got some people now, and if you're not doing the job, they got somebody else that'll do it for you. So, I think that's where just see the growth and what people don't understand. I mean, he's still just a sophomore. I mean, he could be lights out the next couple of years and be a first round draft pick. I mean, obviously, he definitely showed the tools as a prep player and even showed flashes of it at Colorado last year. I just think, for any program, you got to do it all right. You got to do the little things, and you got to be committed to treatment and being on time and film study. And that's what separates the good ones from the great ones. So,
more medals on this edition of Capital Cup of Joe, senior writer for GatorBaitMedia.com. I'm still seeing these projections coming out about people wanting to hit the transfer portal, and they constantly keep having Lagway in there. I mean, I think it's crazy, but has Lagway said anything to your knowledge to give any hints that he might want to just leave the program? I mean,
no, actually, it's the other way around. Lagway has told his parents have told, and I think he said it if asked, that they are Gators no matter what. Coaching change, not, they are with the Gators. I think he likes Gainesville. I think he likes the University of Florida. I think he's, he's a Gatorade spokesman. Why would you go anywhere else? I mean, literally, that's part of his NIL is his relationship with Gatorade. Why would you go anywhere else? But also, even if he transfers, let's say he transfers, you may not be given the keys to the kingdom at another.
No.
You are going to be the starting quarterback at the University of Florida, barring injury, no matter who the coach is. Because you don't think, let's say it's Lane Kiffin. You don't think Lane Kiffin wants to work with the number one quarterback in the country in his class? Of course he does. And if Billy Napier stays, well, then he's probably the closest thing to Levi Lewis, who Napier had success with at Louisiana, that he's ever had. Looking at the way Lagway can rip it and things like that. So why would you leave? Graham Mertz is bringing him along. They are bringing him along, giving him all this knowledge to say, next year, here's the keys to the kingdom. It's all you, buddy. So why would he? I mean, I don't know why that's a good move to leave. Florida will not be devoid of talent because if guys leave, they're going to get some more, and you are going to be the man for the next 2 to 3 years. The man.
Interesting. I'm reading a quote from Joey Knight of Tampa Bay Times, and I'll tell you what he tweets out. He says, "Folks, I can tell you that the move to Orlando was done primarily in deference to local law enforcement first responders who are way too overwhelmed to staff a football game. Memphis were flying to Orlando. Bulls are already there. So as we come on this show tonight, it's just
Camping World.
Huh?
They're gonna play a Camping World.
It sounds to me like that's what's happening. I have not heard this. Have you? I mean,
no. But I would, I wouldn't get those alerts on my phone. You know what I'm saying? But I can,
Yeah, I'm looking through Twitter right now. I'm going to take just a minute here, and
they moved the game about an hour ago to Orlando.
Wow. Wow. So breaking news here, Animal Football Insider. The Florida-Memphis game was originally in Tampa, now moved to Orlando Public Camping World Stadium
Yep,
due
that's
to
where they're going.
due to the fact of not having enough people to staff the game. I mean, I think what people have to understand what goes into staffing a football game between the security, law enforcement agencies to secure the team. I mean, there's a lot of people. You're
Mhm.
taking away those resources from what's really important. So yeah, so it makes a lot more sense. So breaking news here tonight: we've learned that the South Florida Bulls are going to be in Orlando for their game Saturday against Memphis. Um, Originally scheduled for 2:30, that might be moved. Check your college football sites to get updates on that.
It's
Final thing
still
before
it's two. It'd be 3:30 Eastern.
3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time,
Yep.
1:30 Lauren Meadows time. So that's how that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, your take on the weekend last weekend with all the upsets and everything that's happened. Um, could a two loss team actually get into the 12 team playoff?
I think a 3-loss team could get in the playoff, depending on
Really?
if they've got the right 3 losses. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Florida's schedule, think if Florida would go 9-3 with that schedule, and in those they literally lose to Georgia, and that's their last loss. So they would have losses to Miami, Texas A&M, and Georgia on a neutral field, and that would give them wins at Tennessee, at LSU, or against LSU, and against Ole Miss, and at Florida State
In Texas.
and Texas. So I mean, you think about that. That's definitely a 9-3 team that could get in. But I think you're going to have 2 to 3 10-2 teams in.
Wow.
Because look,
Wow.
I
I
mean,
mean,
somebody got to make it, and you got to have 12 teams. I mean, so you
yeah.
look at it from that standpoint, there won't be enough teams if you don't take. And they even may end up taking some other 9-3 teams because I mean they're not going to take all these. I mean, because you think about it, Texas is the last undefeated team.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be some 10-2 teams in there for sure. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and you can check me on this. I'm gonna say at least one 9-3 big boy conference team gets in, whether it's from the Big Ten
Wow.
or whether it's from the SEC.
Wow. Wow. If you were hearing it from Lauren Meadows, a three loss team making the college football playoff. You want to talk about anarchy. You want to talk about people complaining.
Well, now remember,
Excuse my language.
you're still supposed to take the 12 best teams, right?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
looking,
I mean, you're exactly right.
if I'm looking at a 9-3, let's just say Michigan. Michigan
Yeah.
doesn't lose another game, and their losses. I mean, they got one bad blemish with the Washington loss, but they lost to Texas and they lost to Ohio State, which at the end of the season could be the number 1, number 2 team in the country. And let's say they only lose to Ohio State by 2 touchdowns, 28-14.
Yeah.
You don't tell me that Michigan would be one of the top 12?
Yeah. Really. No, I agree. I mean,
Man,
and if the gate and let's just
I'm jumping out the boat on that one.
you're
At least
right.
one 9-3 team gets in.
And let's just say for hypothetical purposes, let's just say that the Gators do go 9-3 and they do make the playoff. I think that the talk of Billy Napier being gone goes out the window, don't
Oh, yeah,
you?
it's over. I think if he goes 7-5, it's over. If he goes
I do
six,
too.
if he goes 6-6, it might be over. He may survive at 5-7
Yeah, sure. I
because
mean,
they don't want to. I mean, the powers that be, and I'm not talking about boosters. I'm talking about the people that just manage everything with an interim president, a athletic director that they really don't know if they want to let him pick another coach, but you can't really do anything with the AD because you have an acting president, interim president. Nobody wants to see this change other than the fans and maybe boosters, things like that. But from a business organizational standpoint, they don't want to change coaches. So for him to go, let's say he goes 6-6, goes to a bowl game, wins the bowl game, 7-6. He's the coach. He'll be the coach next season.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll be doing a lot of talking and hear a lot of grumbling in the offseason with what we do, but that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that'd be the case. Plus the fact you had the tough. Sorry about that. You have the toughest schedule in all of football, and still are able to come back and have a 7-win season. I would think that's success that's success in itself, regardless of who you lose.
Right, and the big thing is, at least his biggest problem right now is that against Miami and against Texas A&M, they look totally unprepared.
Oh yeah,
that's part of the issue. If he could clean up the optics of it, then it may be better for him anyway. Like, say they go and fight Georgia tooth and nail, then they make the trip to Texas and they fight tooth and nail, then they get LSU. Let's say they beat Tennessee and they beat Kentucky at home, and then they go toe to toe with LSU and beat LSU, because who knows what that'll be like here in a few weeks. And then they play well against Ole Miss, but they look like they were putting up a fight. And then they beat FSU. I mean, there you go. You got you got some wins to kind of present. Hey, 6-6. We won some games on the road. We looked a little better as the season went on. And we've got this stellar quarterback that I recruited that's going to take us to the next level. And there's a $27 million buyout that nobody wants to pay. And you got this interim president. I think he stays.
I'm
not sure he doesn't stay at 4-8, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say that he at least stays. If he wins 6 games, Billy Napier will be the head coach at Florida next season.
I agree. I don't disagree with you at all. I think 6-7 wins, he stays, and it builds a good foundation, especially with the guys that's coming in for next year. Mm-hmm. Take us behind the scenes.
Another key point. One more key point for next year. He doesn't open up with Miami next year. That game is September 20th next year. So they will be a little bit more, DJ Lagway could be a lot more settled in by the time they see Miami next season. The game is a little later next year.
I'm waiting for them to come to Missouri so I can come visit with you guys again. I
mean, you might. Well, you're at least 2 years away.
I think, thanks a lot for that. Really, really appreciate that. Take us behind the scenes, because you said something about Scott Strickland and all. It's the administration that, at least it's in place. Are they happy with Strickland? But what are you hearing about that?
I think one would say that they are happy with Strickland from the standpoint of the overall athletic department and the way that it's run, the money that's being made in some sports, the facility improvements that have happened, and even some of the success that has existed under Scott Strickland as a whole. But you could also look at, from the standpoint of, the 3 coaches that the 2 that he hired, one for mysterious reasons, for what people say, quit on the program. Mm-hmm. And then the other one seems to be out of his depth, so to speak, or at least the way it looks. So, I tend to think about it two ways. The job of an athletic director, he is beholden to every sport. I know that football is the cash cow, but he is the athletic director, not the football director. And the fact that he's been able to enhance facilities, I think he's given Billy Napier everything he needs, and he don't call plays and he doesn't block and tackle.
Right.
The second thing is, just like if you look at the president, Ken Fox, is everybody likes to talk about Ken Fox and whatever they feel about him. He's a northerner, things like that. Doesn't really understand it. The Florida kids haven't gotten in like people want them to. But you hired the man to raise Florida's academic standing or the overall standing of a university. And I think when he started, they were 15th public university in the country. And at the end of his tenure, they were in the top 5. That's how you judge those people. So you judge them on the overall picture of the university as a whole and the athletic department as a whole. So, I think that Strickland has done a really good job. I think he's personable. He could be a little bit more supportive, I think, of certain sports, but you get that dollar only stretches so thin and things like that. But a lot of programs are headed in the right direction, and you can't say, well, football's not doing well and that's his fault. But then you look at the success of the other programs and their consistent success, then he should deserve some of the credit for that as well. So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Hey, have safe travels. If you able to join me next week, we'll talk about the Tennessee game and the game to look ahead, because now it's SEC crunch time. Make no mistake about it. So you get your rest. You get your rest. Thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate it, and we look forward to you next week if you're able to join me.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you, man. That is Lauren Meadows of GatorbaitMedia.com. So that's the college thing. That is what's going on from a college standpoint. Of course, we're talking about the NFL, and we only have a couple of minutes because we want to get out here here in a few minutes. Bucs have traveled to New Orleans. They practiced at Tulane Stadium all week. They came out with the injury report. It looks like that Graham Barton may not play as he has an injury along with a couple of other guys. Unfortunately, I don't have that injury report in front of me to go over with you. But it looks like that Graham Barton is not going to play. Spencer Rattler for the Saints, he's going to get the nod over Derek Carr, who has an oblique injury. Let's see here. Just looking at some other stuff here. No, I don't have the injury report. Let me go over the schedule real quick. Excuse me. Niners are Seattle. That game is going on right now. Sunday, Jacksonville, Chicago. That's an early morning game in London on the NFL Network. Cardinals at Packers, Indianapolis, Tennessee, Houston at New England, Bucs at New England, Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Washington, Baltimore. Those are all 1 o'clock Eastern games. 3 o'clock games will be Chargers, Denver at Denver, Pittsburgh at Las Vegas, Denver at Dallas, Atlanta, Carolina. Those are the 4 o'clock game. Night game on Sunday night will be Cincinnati at New York. And on Monday night, the Buffalo Bills will face off against the New York Jets, who fired their head coach Robert Saleh earlier this week. And though Aaron Rodgers says, I had nothing to do with the firing, wink, wink, nod, nod, you kind of get the picture. The Chiefs have a bye this week. The Rams have a bye. the Dolphins, and the Vikings all on buys this week. Well, thank you all for watching tonight. I'm going to get out of here and get ready for spend some time with my wife. Y'all make it a great day. And as always, I like to say, it's always great to be a Buccaneer and a Florida Gator. Y'all have a good night, everybody. See here.
Thanks for joining Joe Fulford on Half Full and a Cup of Joe. Don't forget to tune in next time for more football talk, analysis, and fun. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Half Full and a Cup of Joe. And remember, always keep your cup half full and your team spirit full. See you next time.